high margin job, you know, and we got hurt, and that makes the process work. And we've been trying to hire this, and it's tough. It's just been, it's kind of been up and down the last 6 years. We made profit last year. This year, so we have this. Before the election, it's slow down.
Mine is not out. We all at the same time.
We gotta go from 6 weeks lead time to 4 weeks lead time. Yeah, and check it out there. We kind of changed our product too, rather than just punch over things. We had that one long product. We're trying to sell it. It's a good product, and it's efficient. We're getting more to make it work. Really well. When they get, markets have changed. Trains are out right now. Florida, there's just trains everywhere. But you have to have special certification, all that other stuff. All that. I think that, well, his role changed. He was running the data. I really wish he would have stayed in the role before this. Because I think he was so So it's window wall product, so basically, instead of having a bunch of you have, they just keep building up the slabs. They have the metal slabs, essentially, you just take it, shrink it down, sheet on the inside,
Yes.
Yeah, they just, I mean, it's like, in the country, they have people who build, it's almost like this shape, so the faster, just shoot down and fly. There's good doors, there's some doors, yeah.
They don't even come home, they come home.
And we're centrally located, so that makes sense. We do sell. I'm sure you
We're on the back of the road. That's what we're supposed to go.
We've made some headway in Texas, but we need to make it on that. And then like Orlando, we did a couple of huge jobs there. But they're kind
Came in the back, so I stuck in the kitchen. My They're soft, they're cubby. Oh, no. I brought my dog, my dog's out there, so that you don't see him.
Is the dog bigger than a fox or smaller?
Oh, she's a German Shepherd.
Oh, okay, she'll be fine.
Well, yeah, they won't be.
But they're running.
Yeah. So they,
Now I think they're underneath the school.
oh, they're not.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Joe, Maddie's out there playing tetherball and she wore me down. So she's
She wants me to?
Yeah. You're up.
How hard one can.
Yeah, you've been nominated. Colin Fulton. Good. Susie is retired. Trying to keep up.
That's hard to do.
Yeah.
Brian, it was the wind.
Just my size. Yeah, I know, Joe, they just like, they see me coming. Okay. You got it down. I had to keep somebody, people like got backed up
Brian, in your younger days, you said it's just junk.
I was what they used to be. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
We'll start our meeting, if y'all join us for the last meeting.
Yes, so. Hey, thanks everybody for coming. We'd like to welcome you to Fulton, Kansas. This is my community here. I guess I married into this community. But I'd like to welcome everyone here to learn more about what's going to be discussed and proposed at the county commission. Proposed if the county commission chooses to move forward to enact zoning in Bourbon County. My name is Brian Wade. I live over here off of Soldier Road, and of course, I know, man, everybody here practically. I want to give you if you haven't been here, you need to use the little boys' room, little girls' room, whatever, through this door over here. You can go through, there's a bathroom there, ladies' rooms over here too, for that there. I'm on the zoning advisory committee, and joining me are my fellow committee members. So we'll start here.
Mary Pemberton?
Pete Oldby.
Brian Ashworth.
Jim Banward Jr.
Jason Young.
And we have our county commissioner.
Micah Melvin.
Oh, I know you.
Anyway, she's here to listen to our opinion, advice, questions, or general comments regarding the possibility of zoning in Bourbon County. There is only one commissioner at this forum, not because the others are not interested, it's because if there were two or all three in attendance, they would have to be considered a special meeting of the commission, and we would all have to sit through their routine meeting protocols. There will be a forum in each commission district, and the commissioner representing that district will be in attendance. So all three commissioners will get to hear their constitute. As the procedure for this forum, we will start by presenting information explaining zoning and what is being discussed and considered for Bourbon County. Following that presentation, we will open the remainder of the forum to the audience. Every person who would like to voice their opinions, you will have 3 minutes to say whatever you would like your commissioner and the committee members to know and consider as the process moves forward. Thank you.
You guys know Pete Oldby. You'll have to bear with me, I may screw up a little bit here. My old English teacher's right here and already got on me. The term zoning and codes often go hand in hand, therefore can be confusing. Codes refers to specific regulations that must be adhered to. Codes can apply to a building structure such as a house, a business building, or can dictate things like electrical, plumbing, or structural safety, for what size or height a building can be. Codes can also define whether you're allowed to store 10 operable vehicles in your front yard, keep chickens or pigs in your backyard, or how often you have to mow your yard. There's a myriad of items that the codes can regulate. Codes are more or less limited only by the imagination of community members and elected officials who enact them and can become quite onerous and costly to enact and enforce. Zoning, on the other hand, is much more confined and simple. Zoning is a classification of land according to how it can be used or how it can be used in the future. For example, zoning says your landfill cannot go there because there's inadequate space between you and your neighbors, so it can't go there. But it can go there if there's more separation. One reason it gets confusing is because zoning can also contain codes via conditional use permits, which means your landfill can go here, but you need to put a fence around it to block the view, and commercial trucks can only use one road to get there. Our committee spent most of the first meeting discussing zoning versus codes. What effective zoning could have on the county? What effect not zoning would have on this county? What would be achieved by zoning versus non-zoning? Whether the benefits outweigh the risk, the safeguards in state statutes that help avoid the slippery slope issues. We determined the purpose of zoning in Bourbon County would be to conserve productive farmland and ranches for future generations and protect such land from impacts of unfettered developments of large-scale industrial and commercial uses. Number one. Number two, to protect property values and conserve our natural resources. Number three would be to create a landscape where residential, agriculture, commercial, and industrial zones can coexist harmoniously without conflict. Number four would be to promote and encourage economic growth in this county. If zoning is enacted by the county commissioners, it would only relate to unincorporated areas of the county. Cities that already have zoning, such as Fort Scott, will continue to be under the guidance of the city zoning and their codes or regulations. The other incorporated towns in Bourbon County where county zoning would not apply are Bronson, Uniontown, Redfield, Mapleton, and Fulton. There are a few zoning laws that are determined by the state level, and the county cannot change them even if they want to. The one that most greatly affects our area is that known as ag exemption. If you're ag, you're ag. We can't enforce any kind of codes on ag land. Okay, Kansas state mandates that land used for agricultural purposes is exempt from all zoning restrictions. This means that you cannot be made to pay a permit fee to construct a barn or a structure, and also extends to your personal residence if located on that farm or ranch. Some other items to note that are local importance: when zoning is enacted, all existing businesses are grandfathered in, meaning they are allowed to remain at the current location for as long as they want to. The proposal has been discussed with grandfather the businesses at the existing location, meaning that even if you sold your business to someone else, the new owner can still be grandfathered in for zoning purposes as long as the business location did not change. Also important is that if zoning is enacted by Kansas statute, it will require at least 3 levels of input approval prior to any changes being made. So if we enact a limited zoning and people want to make changes, there have to be 3 levels of input and approval. It has to go through a planning zone, or let me go through this. The submission to the zoning board, which following their own research and public hearings will recommend approval or denial. Required public hearings that allow citizens to comment. The county commission then reviews the zoning board's findings and recommendations and votes to approve or deny. They can send it back for further study. In certain circumstances, it should take the 75% majority vote to override the recommendation and make a zoning change. Many of you probably heard horror stories from other places where zoning and codes are so restrictive that you can't do anything without a permit, a fee, a long list of rules to follow. We want to be clear on this point. That is not what's being proposed by this advisory committee. And from our discussion with commissioners, that is not what the commissioners are proposing. Commission, what we're proposing is to put this into 4 zones: agricultural, industrial, commercial, and residential transition. We are not prohibiting any business or land use. We are not recommending code requirements for anything other than a few very large commercial or industrial businesses that require conditional use or special use permit. We're now opening the forum to public comments to allow time for everyone to speak. We're not answering any questions at this time, we're only listening. If you wish to speak, the line will form right over here. Put 2 or 3 of you in line, and as the line gets smaller, step on up. 3 minutes, let everybody have an opportunity to speak. Thank you. Anybody want to speak? Let them all speak.
No.
Brian, we need more chairs.
Please, I get the chair away, brother.
You're fine.
I think we're fine. These guys will come forward and sit down, you can sit down and. We're limited in space, so,
Does anybody want to ask questions?
anybody got any questions?
Or give your comments? Not questions, comments.
Well, we can ask questions, you just can't answer, right?
We can't answer anything.
First of all, I want to thank the people on the advisory committee for all the time they put into this. I know this may be a little bit of a thankless job, and from a long conversation I had with Mary at the last one, I'm very well aware of how difficult this is as a volunteer commit position that you probably don't get a lot.
Introduce yourself too, please.
Oh, I'm Mark Shedd. I run a software engineering company. I do, and also run Fort Scott Biz. Anyway, I appreciate the effort you're making to get this out into the community. After last meeting and talking with Mary and reviewing the handout, I feel I've refined my concerns on zoning. I would like to share those. So, first, I think there's a great deal of discrepancy between what members on this committee say zoning will do. Conversation with Brian Ashworth, he said it won't prevent anything. We've heard that a few times tonight. Just making sure the common guidelines are being followed. And after talking to Brian, I was like, okay, I think I could get behind zoning if he'd agreed to be the person in charge of it, but he didn't say he wanted to do that. So for example, with solar, it might require setbacks from neighboring buildings, EMS training, or fully funded decommissioning agreements, those types of things. There's nothing that actually prevents landowners from being able to use their land the way they want to. However, at one of the other previous meetings, Brian Wade has said that zoning is a tool to keep landowners from leasing their land to solar companies, and talking with admiration how Lynn County did that. I think I'm representing that correct. I can find it for you. But anyway, it was seen as a tool to keep that from happening. And if I misrepresented you, tell me, because I would love to correct that. But I want to point out these are very different goals. Ashford thinks zoning will be a scalpel to carefully shape the way landowners use their land. Wade, and the way I understood him, thinks it's a sledgehammer that will dictate what can and cannot be done. Now, my experience with government matches Thomas Jefferson's in that it tends to gain ground at the expense of liberty. This experience would make me cautious, even with Mr. Ashworth's description of zoning, but I'd at least be in a position where I could see a theoretical path where zoning could be a good thing. However, since at least some of the committee thinks zoning is going to control and limit what landowners can do, it seems more likely that the danger isn't that zoning might encroach on liberty, but that it's meant to do that by its very design. As Commissioner Bierbauer described it, the goal of zoning is to make sure any non-agricultural use of your land has to get commissioner approval. That sounds like a default position of saying no to non-ag use unless you go through all the layers that Pete just mentioned, those 3 layers he mentioned. Since there's no details about how this will actually be applied, it says nothing would be prohibited, but without knowing what the requirements are, it might as well be a prohibition. Mr. Wade specifically pointed to other county zoning as preventing landowners from being able to rent their land to solar companies as a positive aspect of zoning. But what are the requirements? What if someone wanted to use their property to host the next X Games? Maybe it won't be specifically prohibited, but if you have to get permission and it takes long enough, it's effectively a prohibition. There just aren't enough details here, at least for me, and probably for anyone else, to actually form an opinion on what this would do in the county. Third, let's look at the issue of unintended side effects. Even if there was no discrepancy between the vision for zoning offered by the members of this committee, and even if we had the full details of exactly how it would be implemented, it's going to be very difficult to accurately predict all the side effects and unintended consequences this will have on the economy of Bourbon County. In the last meeting, it was mentioned that businesses might not come to Bourbon County because we don't have zoning. Perhaps that's possible, and I'd be very interested in an example of when that might have occurred. But we also face an even more likely possibility of a business not coming here because of the way our zoning is implemented. There's a big shift from having a default position which allows landowners to manage their affairs in any way that's legal and switching to a default position that requires permission from commissioners. Fourth, even if nothing mentioned is a concern, we also need to be realistic about whether or not Bourbon County can successfully manage the additional overhead that comes with zoning. Given the unprecedented state of affairs where the county commissioners won the election, immediately sued their future seats along with a few landowners, creating huge conflict of interest and expense for the county. Given the fact that the county has trouble even keeping track of roads that are theirs to maintain, which belong to other entities, and I'm not judging on that, I'm just saying there's a lot of difficulties in here. Given the fact that the county just lost a nearly $200,000 lawsuit simply because no one knew they needed to show up to represent the county, it feels like zoning may not be the next most important thing we need to work on. It seems like zoning may introduce a lot of room for errors that we don't have today. So, now if the committee has a way to address these concerns, then please do share them at some point, whatever is appropriate, so everybody can understand the details that don't come out in the handouts. If there's not any way to address these, I would ask that you recommend the commissioners don't proceed with trying to zone Bourbon County because it's likely to do more harm than good based on what we know about.
Hi. My name is Jill Franklin. I live in Zini. And I really don't know, I came here not knowing what to say or think. First of all, I'm gonna just say thank you for you guys for doing it, thankless and hard. Because one part of me, it's like a little devil and angel on your shoulder. One part of me says, let's keep solar and wind out of here. We've had less rain at my place because of the wind farms in Moran. We call it the Zini split. Those storms go right around us. We've had a guy that owns the 80 south of me. We bought our land from him, great guy. He could decide tomorrow to put solar panels in. And in my heart of hearts, you should be able to do whatever he wants to do with his land. But I'll tell you right now, walk my dogs up and down that road every single day, and I sure as heck don't want to look at solar panels. So put some trees up, okay, fine. But still, you're taking up land that cows graze on. I like to eat meat, and I think everybody else does too and should. At any point, that's where I'm coming from standing here today, is I don't know what the right thing or the wrong thing is. And so thank you to you guys for looking at all the different alternatives, and I'm gonna end this with, would you please, and can we all think about outside of the box ideas? Does it have to be zoning where, we have more government control, because none of us want that. Nobody up here even wants that, right? We get enough government in our lives right now. Does it have to be that, or no zoning at all, or is there some way? And I don't know what the answer is. I asked Senator Marshall if he would please, next time he got a call from POTUS, because he was talking about how he gets calls from POTUS, would he please ask Donald Trump for an idea that would help us to solve this issue of saving our farmland without having more government? So I don't have any answers, but that's what's in my head, and I've shared it, and thank you for listening.
My name is Roxy Gray, and I live in Zini. My issue with the zoning pretty much is what a lot of people are thinking up at my place and around my area is I own my land, and I pay property taxes on my land. And the way I see it, I don't think anybody should have the right to tell me what I can and cannot build or do on my property when I want to do it, where I want to build it at, or where I want to put it at. That's my property. I pay for it. Nobody else does. I do. That is just my point. That's the point that I want to make. I just don't see where zoning can do anything. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's a good idea, maybe it's not. But in my opinion, and the way I feel, and the way a lot of people in my area feel, is that I don't see that anybody should have the right to tell me what I can and cannot do with my property. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Kate Casper. As many of you may know, I'm a non-participating landowner neighboring one of the current proposed solar developments. I'm a fourth-generation landowner, and contrary to popular belief, I still greatly respect the majority of my neighbors, even if they may not currently reciprocate that feeling. Tonight, I appeal to all of you not to think of what's best for me, not to think of what's best for the leaseholders, but to think of what is best for Bourbon County. I've tried to understand the stance of those who oppose zoning. The underlying theme, I believe, from these conversations is control. Landowners don't want the government to tell them what they can do with the land that they own. A few points I would make. One, most of the opposers are ag producers. Agriculture is highly subsidized by the government, and I'd say 90% of those in opposition receive those federal subsidies. In order to receive those subsidies, they report the lion's share of every detail of their operations to the government. Now, I'm not knocking farm subsidies. If my tax dollars are to go to something, I want it to be agriculture. It's at the top. But to me, it's a little contradictory to oppose proposed protections of a local government with one hand while giving the federal government every detail of your business with the other. Second, control is an illusion. Everyone is afraid of change in the opposition of government control. However, if we do nothing, change is inevitably coming anyway. This is a change where the character of our county will be decided by outside forces of industry, and in some cases, absentee landowners, and not by those who live and work here. We are not owners of the land, but stewards. It is on loan to us from future generations of Bourbon County residents. Today, the issue is solar development. A few years ago, it was wind. Tomorrow, it will be something else. Developers will always be looking for land to develop on in sparsely populated areas where there's little regulation. In the case of the solar developments, landowners are leasing away the control of their property for 40 years. In 40 years, my oldest child will be almost 60 years old. God willing, she'll have grown children of her own by then. But that's a generation of Bourbon County residents who will have had no part in the decision-making of converting their beautiful rural county to large chunks of industrialization. This cannot be kicked down the road, or it will be too late. It's my fear that my grandchildren's generation will not be Bourbon County residents because of our inaction, but will move on to reside in communities where they can be assured that they'll have some input in shaping the communities in which they make the investment of a home or business. Zoning is a tool that can be utilized by local citizens to shape the character of our county from the inside out, rather than leaving that character to chance and the whim of those industries that come from the outside, waving a dollar under the nose of landowners, looking for an area where they won't be regulated and causing division among those of us who must live with these industries every day. It is the duty of our county government to protect its citizens. Fire danger remains a top issue with these and any other industrial development. If there is no process for local development approval, it leaves little option to provide for protection of not only residents, but those emergency personnel who sacrifice to protect us. I commend this committee, and I thank you for the work that you're doing. I appreciate the thoughtful, educated approach, as well as the minimally invasive suggestions made. And I encourage you to keep moving on the path that you're on. We are at a crossroads in shaping what the future of our county looks like, and I hope when the next generation takes the helm that we can say we worked with the good of our community in mind, and not that we did whatever we wanted because we owned it and we could. Thank you.
All right. I'm Clinton Walker. And the only dog I have in this
But I do have some things to say before that. There's 5 generations of Walkers and McHenrys that's been this year. Irish Valley is after my family, McHenry. Fort McHenry is named after it. So we have a little bit of legacy here. But what I will say is my cousins and people around us took and laughed when Dad took government assistance to build terraces. Oh, heaven forbid. And he took money to build ponds. Well, guess what? My cousin come back years later, and they go, it looks like a golf course. He's been an outstanding farmer. He didn't believe in chemical farming, fertilizer. He didn't believe just barely in using herbicides. So I would say that they have a vested interest to taking care of their land. And the last thing they wanted was the government to come in. And they go, well, how do you say that? Local county government. And the road that goes up to the home place, right at the curb, actually, the county owns that road. Everybody else wanted to close the rest of the path, he got on it. So he left that open, so he didn't talk to the commissioner. He talked to the local road commissioner and had him drop a little gravel every 5 or 10 years and rain once in a while. On the other side of it, all the way up. Well, we have heartburn about closing roads here. Let's get back to the real story about owning your land. My cousin was in oil and he leased land to oil companies. That allowed him to keep the land because of the lease. Farming is not the most profitable business in the nation. How come our average age of a farmer is 65 years old? All right, let's go on further. Now I'm 68. I did 22 years in the military. I inherited 88.6 acres. Down in Irish Valley, our family owns 365 acres. Let's go a little further. They go, absentee land. Heaven forbid, my brother is in Belleville, he's a medical doctor, and he owns over 100 acres here. He's absentee, but he allows us to take it and farm it. Now, let's go further about absentee owners in Kansas. In Burlington, Kansas, they took it right zoning. And a landowner complained because he was leasing land to hunters. And they come back and they made his land special use and raised his taxes. I don't know how many people in Bourbon County know land that's being leased to hunters. I know one thing, in all my years living out there, since we come back in 2000, a bullet broke a great big mirror out there. I might know where the bullet goes. Other than that, the last thing I want to do about zoning, to get a little bit coming in, has anybody ever looked at they had this county commission meeting the other day, what's the profit and loss stuff? I know right now, they're talking about down in Frontenac, one coming in 400 acres. And once they're finished, the school's gonna get 1.4 million. The only thing I would say is at the county level, we need to have good negotiators for what we get out. Thank you.
I'm Nick Graham. I was just here to support Mike and Katie tonight, and I wasn't planning to speak, but it's my week to piss people off. I'm going to touch on a few things, some of which maybe get me in trouble at work. There's been a lot of talk of distrust in our local government. Trust me, I hear you. If you don't believe me, I just posted a biblical length article about my current issues with our local government, which are totally different than my issues with the last one, but that's neither here nor there. That being said, I want to commend this panel. I do think they were kind of thrown out like sheep to the slaughter. And, but I would encourage anyone, I've worked in Lynn County for nearly 4 years now, for the government. And they have zoning there. And I would encourage you, if you know someone who lives there, relative, ask them what Lynn County is, Bourbon's very conservative. I would almost argue Lynn's even more conservative. And nearly 4 years of watching Lynn County Commission meetings, I've never seen anyone complain about the zoning except for somebody who wanted to put a rock quarry on their land that was not far from their neighbors, which understandably the neighbor wasn't thrilled. But I think if you look at a county where it's a neighboring county, like Lynn or Allen, where it's in place, I don't think you get a lot of negative feedback. I also want to touch on solar. I'm not a legal expert by any stretch, but based on my very basic understanding, there's no way zoning could ban solar in Bourbon. So if anybody who's pro-zoning and hopes it could ban solar, that ship sailed 4 years ago. You need a time machine. I've heard people talk like, oh, in Lynn County, they use zoning to ban it. Here's the story that's probably gonna get me in trouble at work, possibly. Everybody, turn that phone off. I don't want any commissioners hearing that. So, Lynn County has planning and zoning. They had a planning and zoning director. He was a really good guy. Why it's had, that's a whole other story. They're, more runoff. Well, the last one got fired. The other, the good one got run off. But again, they have planning and zoning. They have a planning and zoning board. Someone submits a conditional use permit to the board. The board either yeas or nays it, then sends it to the commission. Solar has been a big battle up there, predating this one. So this is really bad deja vu for me. What originally happened in Lynn County is the Planning and Zoning Board, over a lot of meetings, came up with solar regulations they thought were reasonable, and they unanimously passed them. Then they sent them to the county commission, who unanimously passed them. I'm not a good public speaker. Then a little bit later, a small group, and I'm not saying anti-solar or anti-zoning here is small, obviously they're not, but in Lynn County, it's a small group. They raised a bit of a ruckus, and so certain members of the commission are like, wait, so they passed a moratorium, and then later they passed a ban. You can't really do that based on my understanding of the law, because they had already adopted zoning that they had approved, that they had all unanimously approved, and they didn't accept even a single conditional use permit. Long story short, I suspect I will be working for Lynn County, a subsidiary of NextEra, within the next 5 years, because I feel the county's probably going to get sued for that. And in our county, I can't remember what the name of it is, it's by Heffler, but the county signed an agreement, and this was 2 commissions ago, for solar. So that, the foot's already in the door. If we implemented zoning and tried to ban solar, we would be opening ourselves up to a lot of lawsuits, like I fear my employer's about to endure. But going back to that, in Lynn County, it's one guy, and they've got a lot more money than us because they have the power. There's not a group of people driving around the farms looking to see, oh, his chicken coop's not painted the right color. They have way more money than us, and they don't have the money for that. It's one guy, and he's more than busy enough wrangling the planning and zoning board and handling all the permits and all the questions that come. He doesn't have time to go driving around. So I get the distrust in our government, but at the same time, if you look at, and I wish they had handled this much differently. Again, props to these guys for going out there and putting their necks on the line. Things could have gone, and this could have been handled a lot better in my opinion. But talk to a neighbor. If you know somebody in Allen, talk to them. If you know somebody in Lynn, talk to them. It's not a police state over there. It's very light touch, and really that's all it can be in a rural county. Nobody can afford to hire a squad of zoning people or codes and zoning people to go around and drive around. And I've never, again, aside from the rock quarry, in nearly 4 years, I've never heard anybody at a commission meeting complain in Lynn. And trust me, there's plenty of people complaining at commission meetings in Lynn. So that's all I've got. I'm pro zoning and pro solar, by the way. So bury the hatchet in your dislike of my seemingly contradictory position.
My name's Kyle Parks, and we live up here by Devon. We've been here up in this country about 40 years, raised our family here. Kudos to these guys and our commissioners at the job. I sure as hell wouldn't want to do. I've just got 2 or 3 things I want to say. I'm pretty passionate, kind of. Anyway, I want to know, and I know we're not answering questions. We're one of the few counties around this part of the state that are not zoned. There's got to be a reason. I think there's probably a lot of reasons, but we need to check in on that, because I don't want to become a dumping ground for people that are looking for a place to go. Several people have mentioned that Bourbon County will get like $104 million in taxes each year for the next whatever. That doesn't seem right to me, because these solar companies get a tax abatement for 10 years. They don't pay taxes. After 10 years, if they do any work on replacing batteries and whatever, they get another 10 years. So right there, you know, maybe out of 20 years, we might get a year's worth of taxes. I don't know. To me, it looks like the only people that are getting any money out of the solar companies and the wind companies that are coming into Bourbon County are the landowners, the schools, and that's pretty much it. The county's not getting any. It's not saving us any money on our taxes. I guess something that really bothers me is, of all of the people that have signed contracts for the solar panels, and I am dead against the solar panels. I'll just be upfront about that. Not one of them is it going to be on their land right around their house. They're not going to be able to see it from their house. I'm going to be able to see it from my house. I don't want to be able to see it. It's not around my house. It's not around their house. I don't want it around my house. I came to Bourbon County. Bourbon County is a beautiful county. And I have driven by these big batteries of these things in other states. They're god-awful ugly. On the zoning deal, and they prepared kind of a pre-zoning booklet here. They talked about 117 pages. That's crazy. I'm thinking like 3 or 4 pages. We don't want to code the county, we just want to zone the county. So that's too much. That's too much. We don't want that much government. I understand that. So that's all I got.
Oh, I should mention that when I said I have a lot of issues with our current local government, present company excluded. Mike is pretty awesome.
My name's Brad Blythe. My wife and I live down by Uniontown. We raised 8 kids and got a bunch of grandkids. We lost a kid about 3 weeks ago. Nothing more sad than that. And, yeah, that was tough. I'm opposed to zoning. I was unaware of what was going on. My own fault. I don't go to commission meetings. You know, watch sometimes on the YouTube what's going on. But other than that, somebody told me after the last meeting, I listened to Bear's speech he gave, and it was actually the 4th of April. And so I did listen to it many times. I really appreciated that speech. I appreciated his honesty and openness, because he said, there's going to be zoning. We just don't know what it's going to look like. Well, that didn't make any sense to me. Why would you implement something you don't know what it is, what it's going to work like? So, and that last gentleman brought up, there's a lot of counties in the state that have zoning. That doesn't relate to me, because our county is unique. That's an awesome county. Just more government regulation and red tape. And, just another form of socialism, liberalism, socialism, basically the same. A few people get to dictate what the majority wants or can or can't do. Okay. Taxes. Somebody's got to cost something. Somebody's got to manage it, implement it, and take care of it. That's not going to be free. Property taxes are already, in my opinion, way too high. Just another layer of government that the people don't want. I in my opinion. Yeah, I'm not for socialism at all, or this is one type of socialism. You know, I think it was Margaret Thatcher, whoever. Anyway, she said, you know, socialism is the best form of government in the world until you run out of other people's money. And that's kind of what's going on here, I think. I think we should invite and try to get more wind and solar or anything like that that generates money in the county. I know I've leased my ground for solar and wind, and it generates a lot of money. And I think a lot of people in the county have leased their land and stuff, and I think that's a good thing. It brings money into the county, helps you out. I noticed over the last few years, it seems like our county is just getting more and more and more liberal until it's come to this, zoning. I like electricity. I think everybody, it's almost a necessity. When our electricity goes off from a storm or whatever, well, you know, messes up the TV and all that goes along with it, we miss it. And I don't want any brownouts, blackouts like they have in California. I'm for any form of electricity manufacturing or generation that we can get. Those are, you know, we got hydropower, nuclear power. I wish we had a nuclear plant in this county. That'd take care of a lot of money problems. Wind power, solar power, coal, oil, gas. We got a lot of ways to make electricity. I asked the, you know, I was wondering, why do I want to get up here and make a fool out of myself in front of all these people? I decided, you know, if I don't express my feelings and opinions, I shouldn't complain when this kind of stuff comes down the pipeline. I mean, it looks like it's coming. I appreciated Mr. Bierbauer's talk. At least he told me what they were going to do. He said, we're going to have zoning, we just don't know what it's going to look like. That sounds kind of ass backwards to me. So I guess I would say I guess we only have one commissioner here. Please don't implement zoning in our county, please. And I think it's wildly unpopular. And I think the needs of the many outweigh the wants of the few. So we've got along in this county really good without zoning. And it seems like all I'm hearing, well, zoning's not going to do this, it's not going to do that, it's not going to do this and that. What are we doing it for? This county's getting along really good, I think, in my opinion. I think that's about all I got to say. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask me? Okay. Last chance, going down.
Thank you.
But I'd like to talk to you afterwards. What's wrong right now? I'd just like to talk to you right afterwards. I got some questions I'd like to ask you afterwards.
Ask him out loud. Come on.
That's okay, here,
Come on,
let's-
How many of these solar panels are going close to your house?
No,
How many
no.
of these solar panels are going close to your house? I don't live on my farm, I don't. No.
Okay. That answers
Who's next? Who's next? Who wants to speak next? Come on, hold on, we
Mr. Blythe, I followed you at Uniontown, do you mind if I step in?
You're my hero.
Oh.
I wish I could talk like you.
Well, I didn't prepare anything in Uniontown, I just winged it, but for tonight,
Well, you did all
I
that.
prepared a little bit, so.
I prepared and didn't do any good.
Yep. My name is David Foster, I'm a 45-year citizen and contributor to this county. Pretty much keeps myself until I can't afford to stay quiet. I'll probably ruffle some feathers, although Blythe's doing a good job too. And that is unfortunate because most of us who call Bourbon County home have a lot more in common than not. I'm trying to keep the only dairy farm in this county from going under. We in southeast Kansas represent the lowest revenue per acre in the entire state. If I'm farming ground, I might be able to expect $100 to $200 per acre profit, hinging upon the weather, grain prices, trade, and then I get to pony up on property taxes as well. This zoning issue first reared its head, in my understanding, when the wind turbines came in a few years back. I'll be quite honest, if it weren't for subsidies, and if it weren't for a way to simply add some regular additional income year after year to our farm's bottom line, it wouldn't have made sense. Yet we made the decision and haven't regretted it to this day. On top of that, once the tax abatement ends, should provide additional taxes to the county. Now, I'm sure that we can all agree our commissioners will then choose to lower our taxes once the extra income starts flowing. But seriously, that is a simple, small way we have chosen to utilize the land we supposedly own to further our own version of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We should all remember our founders wanted a limited government. This issue of zoning is only being proposed because our neighbors, our friends, our contributors to the local fair board, church, tax base, etc., are trying to utilize their land to the best of their ability. This isn't an outside investor wanting to bring in toxic waste to abuse a county as a dumping ground. You don't have to agree, but you have to understand implementing this now will bite every single one of us in the butt, either directly or indirectly. We will stifle growth, and that we are in absolute desperate need of is growth in this county. We will hand over powers and responsibilities to commissioners that quite frankly can't and shouldn't have those additional powers until a more positive track record can be established. Lawsuits Unlimited seems to be plaguing the unwise leadership we have all been paying for. Their house is simply not in order. I don't think they deserve to add the task of managing the affairs of landowners in this county. Their own propaganda tells us that they want to set specific land uses, permits, regulations, and yes, that paves the way to codes. There are many that believe this forum is merely a formality to have the appearance of collecting feedback. Beerbauer himself, as has already been mentioned, has been adamant that zoning will be done, just hasn't figured out the details. Doesn't sound very representative, does it? Any minds are the minds already made up. I think that's why we're supposed to be here. My opinion is the time is not now to ramrod through a zoning law that may very well finish off our county that has very apparently been tracking in the wrong direction. As I stated at Uniontown, but did not coin myself, I'm with the ZF Coalition. We're zoned enough already.
My name's Dale Mandu. I live just east of Hammond, about a half mile. I was raised in Bourbon County. I'm 70 years old. I've been here a long time. I left for a long time, and I worked for the government for 38 years. Keep that in mind. I've seen how government does. I've seen it from every aspect. I want to commend you people for taking on this task. I think it's probably a task that's going to be more than you really want in the end. But I've seen what government does for you. They will promise you and promise you and promise you, and then they will change the rules after they've implemented it. And I'm gonna give you an example. They told us that, oh, if we get casinos, all this money will go to schools. How much of it actually went to schools? Somebody got an idea? Very little went to schools. We got it voted in, and they did it. But where'd the money go? Government is not your friend. They want to control you. Like I said, I worked for them for 38 years. I spent 8.5 years in the military, and I spent, over 30 years in the post office. When I first went into government, I kind of looked like, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. And before I left, it was like the left hand didn't even know there was a right hand. And they will continue to be this way. Well, I've heard many different people speak about how the zoning is going to contribute to more tax dollars. Okay, maybe it will, maybe it won't. But where's that money actually gonna go? We bring in these solar panels, we bring in these wind turbines. Those are all subsidized by your tax dollar. So you're not gaining anything, especially when they give them tax abatements for how many years? We've seen it time and time and time again. There is no need for us to have this zoning without some knowledge of what the effects are gonna be. The panel needs to come up with a plan that says what this zoning is gonna be. Because they wrote the paperwork, but nobody's read it. Look at and I'll give you another example of that. Look at what the Obama medical thing done. They passed it before Congress ever read the damn bill. Same thing's gonna happen right here. If we don't get this thing on paper so you can see what the rules are truly gonna be, you don't want it in your face. I worked for government too long, and I seen too much stuff when I was in the military that government doesn't care about you. They care about the almighty tax dollar in their pocket, not yours. They will, in the end, change the rules after you get this implemented. Guaranteed. Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak?
I do. Come on, Sam. I told you I wasn't gonna speak tonight, right? So, my name's Samuel Tran. I've only been here 4 years. So, I'm fairly new. I spent 27 years in the Air Force. I went around the world, did all kinds of crazy stuff. I'm pretty busted up. And I love my house. On 40 acres, flat 5 piece. And I will, pardon me for being emotional. You guys talk a lot of good stuff, you do. And I don't discount any of it. But I think you guys are switching facts with emotions, okay? What you just said, absolutely true. You don't know what these guys are gonna do, they don't know what they're gonna do.
Exactly.
Okay, but it's not their job. Their job is to decide whether or not zoning is good for this county. It's the zoning board that comes afterwards to decide what it's gonna look like. That's what you look at. So to your point, sir, you're absolutely right. That's what government does, okay? To the other gentleman's point, you got all this money, they're our money, this is our money that the solar panels are getting. The solar panel companies are foreign, they're from other countries. They're not American companies. They may say Next Era, but that's tied to a Jewish company. I don't got nothing against Israel, okay? But I'm telling you, the money doesn't stay in America. They get the subsidies from us. So a $100 million project, 30 million of that comes from our money. So when I asked the venture, the company, I said, how long do you keep it? He goes, oh, we sell it up and we keep a portion of it because we're venture capitalists. So what does that mean? I build it, a third of that money is subsidized by you, I sell it for a profit, I keep a portion of it so I have an income stream. You don't get that tax right now. In 10 years, they're gonna repower, which Kyle alluded to, they're gonna repower, which pushes your tax abatement another 10 years into the future. And then at that point, they're gonna sell it just like they sell your mortgage. So you know what happens when they sell your mortgage? The last guy that holds that mortgage is the dude that goes broke. Because what ends up happening is you come in and they're like, give me my tax money. These guys, the state's gonna say, give me my tax money. And that poor bastard on the very end of that chain, he said, well, I'm not making money off of this. He files bankrupt. Guess who owes on the taxes after that? The landowner. The taxes are not connected to the solar panel, they're connected to the land. Look it up. Somebody here said, what was the internet? You can't believe the internet. Seriously, everything's on the internet. Your government is on the internet. Your rules and regulations are on the internet. News articles are on the internet. North Carolina farmer lost his ass because solar panel went tits up. They came and said, give me the money. He couldn't pay the bill. So here's some facts. Whether you're pro-zoning or not zoning, I'm good with that, guys. But here's what I see with the solar company. Now, just for transparency, when I was asked to be on the solar panel board, I was very much neutral. Very, very much neutral. But after about 3 weeks of doing research, talking, doing more research, a buddy of mine is a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force for the Civil Engineering Squadron down in Tyndall Air Force Base. He deals with renewable energy. It's not tenable. When my buddy is like, this shit don't work. You know, you guys heard about, oh, they're putting vegetable oil for jet fuel. It burns, but it doesn't burn very well. So all this green stuff doesn't work. So here's a part. Sorry, I got sidetracked. You don't know what these guys are going to do as far as zoning. I agree. But you don't know what the solar panel company is going to do. You got your land, you sign the lease, you're on the hook for 5 years. I read the lease. They come in, they offer you $50 an acre for the first year, $60 an acre for the second year, 70, 80, up to 5 years. If they don't build within the contract I read, if they don't build within the third or fourth year, the landlord can bail. But nobody's bailed yet as far as I know. So, they don't have to follow the NEC, the National Electric Code. It's not in the books. They don't have to follow it. Do they do it? Yeah, if they hire an electrician, they'll probably do it. But the NEC doesn't really cover anything as far as electrical. The state has no say in this. There's no rules, codes, regulations for solar farms in the state. The state is completely hands off. Our senators want the money. That's why they're fighting the bill right now. Because they're fighting for green energy. I've been following them. It's like, get rid of the money and then we won't have this problem. But senators from red states are fighting for that money because it's green money. It's subsidies for businesses, not just for the solar panel businesses. There's no guarantee that the site will be cleaned up. None. Like I stated, they can repower. They sell the venture. The new owners are left holding the bag. Taxes are tied up with the farm and not and the owner, so it's not. They're not going to get the taxes. The biggest thing you guys got to understand is ag land is exempt. As long as you're in ag, you're exempt. Now, I don't know why somebody put their land off. I know a couple guys here in this county that have hunting leases. To my knowledge, nobody came to them and said, oh, you started a business on your farm and now we're going to rezone you. Or not we have zoning, we're talking about zoning. I don't see that happening in Bourbon County. I really don't. One person talked about unfettered growth. You don't know what it looks like. You're right, you don't. But you know what I do know? I know what these people look like. I know that I can call her. I know that I can go to your house. I can find anybody in this room on Google, and I can go talk to you. You think I can go talk to my congressman? You think I can go talk to EPA or any of those guys up in DC? That's the government that I'm afraid of. I'm not afraid of these guys. I'm not afraid of her. She's got the worst bite I've seen. She's a pistol. I love her. She's great. But I'm not afraid of her. In fact, I want this group to govern me and not the group up in DC. So your fears, while they are valid, they're misguided. They're not, you shouldn't be afraid of this group. You should be afraid of the other group. Because you have no control, no guidance. You have no say in how they spend their money. Socialism. Yeah, socialism is bad. I would agree with that, but this is a socialist society, ladies and gentlemen. You're using my money to pay for things that I don't agree with. I don't like it, but it's happening. It's happening now. So your local government's right here. Talk to your local government and knock out the socialism. If you're afraid of socialism, these are the people, right here. None of the money from the windmill, just forward me. Too bad Bo's not here. Bo was there. When I asked the commissioners, like, how much of that windmill money went to schools? Zero. That windmill farm has been up and functioning way before I got here, but none of the money went to schools?
True.
And if somebody's complaining about the lawsuit, look, you can complain about whatever you see on Facebook, on Fort Scott Biz, people say all kinds of crap, okay? But here's the thing, I don't say anything about that until I have the facts. Now, I know more about the facts than I care to share because frankly, I think you should do your own research, okay? But the thing is that don't harpoon these people, don't harpoon the commissioners because you don't like how it's working out right now. But guess what? The last commissioners that we had, they were even worse. In my honest opinion, they were worse. I'd much rather have these three right here, right now. Even if Beerbauer did misspeak or misspoke or however you guys want to, characterize that. The lessees make money. The only people in this one that makes money are the lessees, landowners, okay? If you give that money, if you give the pilot money to the schools, it does not take away your tax money. You're still gonna pay tax. Oh, and by the way, even though they get pilot money, they're still gonna go to Topeka and get money for the schools. So they're double dipping. Understand that. Now, don't sit here and say, oh, well, you don't care about kids. I raised 3 kids. I sent them to college. I busted my ass doing it, okay? I respect everybody's kids. I don't have a problem with that. But Christ, spend the money wisely. You're promised $1 million and you're still taxing us at this ridiculous level. I don't agree with that at all. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. That's a double-edged sword. Okay? In one instance, the few are the landowners, and the many are the people of the county. In the other scenario, the few are the people who want zoning, and the many are the people who don't. It's up to you guys to decide that. And more importantly, it's up to you guys to decide that. I appreciate everything you've done. And I've been in your shoes. Okay? It's tough. It's a bitch. I hope I didn't offend anybody. I'm very passionate. If I did, I apologize in advance, but I'm very passionate about this. I've been at this for over a year. I've been doing this job for a year, on my own. And I'm like, do what you guys think is best. But in the end, I've seen cities, towns that lost their identity because of capitalism, okay? Capitalism will ruin this town. If you want some vestige of what you had in the past for your kids, be careful what you're asking for, okay? Thank you.
Sam, you're pretty hard to cross. Thank you for allowing me to come up here. I'm Mike Wonderly, and I am for zoning in Bourbon County. Just a few years ago, we was going through this same situation with wind turbines, and they were successful with their efforts. Everybody dropped the boat. Just a few years later, here we are facing the same situation. The solar panels only on a much larger scale. I'm sure some of the people that are in here tonight are in favor of these industrial solar panels, but I would bet that they do not have an entire section, 640 acres, starting 300 feet from their house. The previous Bourbon County Commissioners agreed to a 300-foot setback from any residence, and it is about that far from my house to the road. So I am faced with looking at 640 acres of solar panels for the rest of my life. Would you buy a property that had an entire section of solar panels from your house, 300 feet from your house starting? No. I don't want to sell, and I don't plan to. I have a grandson that would love to be there someday. I encourage you to contact your commissioner and support zoning, agriculture, industrial, and residential. Who would you rather have making a decision, a high-dollar attorney representing a large industrial project or a group of your peers. The next time, it may be directly across from your house.
Anybody else?
I just have one other comment. I won't use up the whole 3 minutes. I started this by saying I didn't know where I stood, and I sat here and I listened to every single one of you. And a couple things have stuck in my head. My first thought was, is there something else we can do? These companies are getting subsidies, our US tax dollars, and they're getting our subsidies from our state tax dollars. But can we institute a tax in Bourbon County? I don't know if it's even possible, but make it so that it's so costly for them to come in. Why do we have to not tax them just because the feds in the state have decided not to tax them? And when it comes back to what has been said several times, you don't have to be Warren Buffett to know that these companies would not be doing what they're doing because they're not profitable without the subsidies. And right now, we've got Senator Moran, God bless him, voting against getting rid of this Green New Scam money. And part of that is because of probably Panasonic, right? But they're gonna come anyway. And they're trying, we're hoping that they'll cut it off at the federal level, but they're fighting it. If we can hold out long enough until they actually do shut off the Green New Scam, is that a strategy? And that's all I have.
Guys, if there's no more questions.
Yeah, I would like to say that I think a lot of people don't realize the scope of this thing. 22,000 to 40,000 acres. 40,000 acres is 10% of Bourbon County. All of the counties around us have groups that are either fighting this or they're trying to get zoning in. Talked to Marty Reed. Marty Reed has been a representative of Topeka. He's been on the zoning board in Lynn County, and he was a commissioner in Lynn County. Never had a problem, according to Marty. Everybody knows who Marty is. Somebody asked, why do we want zoning? All of the farmers have houses and land, and it will be devalued. So when you're saying it's economic development, that's a joke. It's the opposite of economic development. Nobody's going to want to have a house right across from one of these things. So when you go to sell, that property is going to be less money. People act like the farmers are living on the farms, and we just live on a country club. We just drink beer and have fun. It's just a ball. You should have been out there in the mud this morning. But the farmers pay taxes, and we buy millions of dollars worth of goods locally. The sale barn, I don't know how many millions of dollars goes to the sale barn. You're going to take 10% of the county out and totally destroy it forever. This ground will never be used for farm ground. How much money is NextEra spend in Fort Scott? Or going to spend? And they're talking about jobs. There's not going to be a job produced by this. It's all going to be out-of-state jobs, people that come in here. But understand, when somebody asks, why zoning?
Yeah,
It's going to devalue our land.
So it's not gonna do this, not gonna do that.
It's going to devalue our land. I'm going to talk to the rest of us. I've got a huge investment in this, and I just don't want to sit on that property and look out at these things. And you don't have to, won't have to, because you don't live on the farm. You just said you don't.
I'm there all the time.
They said the same for wind, and my values went up, so, okay.
Your value of the land has gone up?
Yeah.
That's just
Sir,
crazy.
how many windmills would you go to the bank and borrow and put up a windmill and get the profit off of what you produce?
That's a good question. I've never wanted to purchase
No,
that
you
investment.
wanted
But I like the check that I
You
have
want
every
taxpayers to
year,
pay.
so that I can have employees that work and live in this county along with myself and my kids.
Okay, guys, we got another person who wants to speak.
Yes, my name's Dan Gordy, and I just want to make a few observations. You know, 1975, that was so 50 years ago. When I got out of high school, 74, 75, I was free to run. Man, I fished so many ponds all over the place. Half the time you didn't even have to ask permission, but you did to be polite. Well, that was all a wonderful young adult life that I had, but like I said, that was so 50 years ago. The world's not like that now. Everything's different. Technology has changed quite a bit. People are coming in from everywhere. Population is growing like crazy. And all I'm going to say is, I'm not speaking to solar and wind and all that stuff, but what I'm going to say is this. What we had then is not what we have now. And what we have now isn't going to work. What we have now is random land development. And random land development, we've seen the results of that with wind and solar. And it's a toss of the dice what the next random land development is going to be or where it's going to be in our county. So it's just time. It's time to have some zoning and end the random land development because it's not going to work for us in the future. That's all.
Mary wanted to say. a few
Did
things.
anybody else from the
other speakers? I wanted to thank everybody for coming. At our first meeting in Uniontown, it was stated by a number of people that we already have made up our mind, that we're not really listening, and I want to assure you, and Mark there pointed this out, we have a lot of different opinions on how things might turn out, just on this board. We're not unanimous on anything, I can assure you of that. We've not made up our mind, and it is very important that you all did come and speak your voice. We appreciate it.
Yes. Okay, I got three questions to ask you guys.
Pete, I do have a question.
Yep.
I'd like to know who's selling our contact information to.
Yes.
We have no idea, we are not involved in that at all.
I agree.
We have nothing to do with that.
I traced that number today. That number that they send that text out to, it's based out of, I believe it's Miami.
Out of
Not
Miami?
Miami, Florida.
Not Miami, Oklahoma.
No,
Miami, Florida. We have nothing to do with that. I'll tell you what, I love it. We got, according to my count, we've got 64 people here.
And nobody knows who it is, it's just kind of like a.
I love it. I want to see everybody in this county involved in everything that goes on in this county. I want to see you all show up at commission meetings. I want to see you voice your opinions there. Believe me, there's very few of those meetings I've missed for the last year and a half. Yeah, and tomorrow night, we're having a meeting in Fort Scott. We need you all there. Everybody, both sides. We want both sides. We want the whole thing to be.
But you also need, rather than just meeting jumpers, you need new people to keep coming.
Yes, yes, bring your neighbors, bring your friends, tell everybody. First question I got for you guys is, was this presentation helpful?
Yes.
Raise your hands, please, if you think it was helpful. I can't count you all, but anyhow. Has this information changed any of your minds regarding the issue of zoning?
No.
Okay. Number three, this is a three-part question. We had trouble with this at Uniontown for some reason, but I'm gonna try to explain this out. Nobody raise your hands yet. Okay, the first part is, are you totally opposed to zoning? I'll ask that here in a second. Number two, the part is, if you, Are you on the fence about zoning? And number 3 will be, are you in favor of zoning? Number 1, are you totally opposed to zoning?
Please keep your hands up long enough. We want to get a good idea. This helps us with our recommendations, so it's important.
This county is already zoned, guys, don't push that bit. There's 70% of the population in this county that's already zoned.
Would you like to be able to speak?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm Joe Ledley. I live out on 649 Grand Road, Uniontown. And this county is already zoned. The city of Fort Scott is zoned. The city of Fort Scott, because this county's not zoned, controls 3 miles out their perimeter. They've got control of that. Citizens of Fort Scott, if you have this county zone you lose that control. Every city in this county that's incorporated has control of your own borders. So my contention is this county is already zoned enough. Everybody else that lives in rural areas, you know where your property line's at. There's always contention between neighbors. But you always go back to that property line and you negotiate. Sometimes out of grace, sometimes it takes a while. But this is what this country's built on. Private property and free enterprise. And it seems selfish, but if you're a property owner, you gotta figure out how to use that property or produce that on something on that property that you can have somebody else pay you for. Now, why in the world is solar and wind in this county? This county has a lot of corn farmers, and we run that corn through an ethanol plant. And we extract energy out of that. Those corn farmers get subsidies. You ever hear the renewable fuel standard? Fuel companies are mandated to use that fuel in blending. Now, Cornell University, you guys are talking about facts. Cornell University did a study on producing energy with solar panels versus producing energy with corn. And they found that 3 acres, roughly 3 acres of solar panels is the equivalent of 100 acres of corn. So think of that.
And equivalent to how many acres of nuclear?
Well, okay,
Not a
yeah,
comparison.
well, in nuclear, we see the nuclear plant, but there's 12,000 acres surrounding that plant.
That core ground would be used.
Anyway, okay. So my point is, I don't want to get into too many arguments, but the only reason they're here is because landowners have taken the time to negotiate contracts, and everybody gets paid. If they put a single panel on my property, I can make as much in 5 years as I can in the next 50. And I know exactly the property that I'm leasing to, because it's rough, rocky, and the only agricultural use I can make out of it is running about 10 acres per 1 cow. That's it.
Well, the 640 acres across the road from my house is some of the most beautiful pasture land in Bourbon County.
Yeah, there's other neighbors that have hedge trees and cereal
Sir,
trees and other.
who's paying for your solar power? Taxpayer. Subsidy. You know,
Well, okay, I won't get into that, but at any rate, my point is, that this country was built on private property rights, and boy, when I start getting my county commissioners to tell me how I could make profit on my farm, I'm not going there. Okay? Thank you for listening, and I'm sorry I'm passionate about this.
Don't do it on the back of others.
Be careful what you do. We don't need any more
government telling us what to do. I'm the government, I'm here to help. Let's start back at the beginning again. Raise your hand if you're for zoning.
Wait.
Against.
We're starting over.
Oh, sorry.
Raise your hand. Okay, raise your hand if you're against zoning.
Let's not confuse the people. They're confused.
How many did you get?
So
Raise
this
your
is
hand
people that are.
if
that
you're on
do
the
not like
fence for zoning.
These are people that are kind of up, maybe up in the air, so. 9, 10.
Now, raise your hand if you're for zoning.
Tonight, I did.
Keep them up.
All right, who didn't vote?
There's a bunch of people that don't know either.
What kind of dirty pool is that?
Oh my gosh. Can y'all put them back up? There's more hands. It's hard to do.
Okay, guys, you don't have to raise my finger. Okay?
Did you
Put them in the air and shake them around like you don't care. Guys, this is a hot topic. What do you mean? We're not having fun with it. You think we're having fun standing up here getting people staring us down? We're not enjoying it at all. Please bear with us. We're trying to do what's best for this county. We're not trying to do anything else.
Let's have a round of applause.
Thank you very much.
One more thing. I don't think I'm allowed to speak, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So, the one thing I do want everybody in this room to remember, I know almost everybody in this room, most of these are familiar faces to me. And regardless of what happens with this zoning, I still consider you all neighbors. Okay?
Likewise.
Good for you.